Thank you. Need a pen? Amy, I'm a thief. A pen thief. Thank you. Thank you.
Full house for all the tax issues today.
The one.
Okay, great. I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. We can start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll for us?
Ms. Vittori.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. And this evening, we're going to start with a public hearing. Last time I read this, and then I believe Ms. Combs had planned to read it anyway, so would you like to read the description, or would you rather I read it?
We'll start with the map amendment.
Okay.
Good evening. Tonight, the public hearing is for a zoning map amendment, a request by applicant Ron Decker on behalf of property owner Ravello Properties for a map amendment approval for an approved preliminary development plan to construct a 210-unit multifamily development on the site located along the south side of Lefferson Road and along Audubon Drive, known as parcel IDs 070-210-20051, 070-210-2006, and 070-210-07003. The properties are a total of 18.5 acres. Properties are currently zoned R4 attached residential district. If approved as a part of the plan development process, these properties would be rezoned to PD plan development district to acknowledge there is a development plan associated with the property. So the two photos that you see on the bottom, views are from the properties along Audubon and then Vinny Drive. Subject properties, again, are currently zoned R4 attached residential, and again, are a total of 18.5 acres and currently vacant. Multifamily units are permitted in the R4 zoning district. Per the Middletown Development Code, the minimum site area for a planned development is 5 acres. Surrounding property uses, as you can see, the bold red line with the star that indicates the properties that we're talking about tonight. So surrounding property uses, north, Robin Springs Apartments, also zoned R4, attached residential. East, Nicholas Place Apartments. Office, O2P, which means there's a planned development for the Nicholas Place Apartments. West, Maple Oak Apartments, also zoned R4 attached residential. And south, there are land dominiums, R4 zoning district. The development plan proposes a total of 8 apartment dwellings that also provide playground, pool, mulch walking trail, clubhouse with weight room and social room, child play area, and putting green. There's abundant lawn space between the building for outdoor activities. Per the Middletown Development Code, building and uses should be arranged, designed, or located in order to screen the proposed use from the neighboring properties. The building and uses may be arranged in various groups or clusters with open spaces organized to provide privacy when applicable, to form a unified composition of buildings and space, and to maximize the sense of place created by the design. The development plan proposes buffering along the property lines for any future development in existing residential dwellings. Next slide, please. Public notice requirement. Per the Middletown Development Code notice requirements, public notice was published a minimum of 30 days prior to the public hearing of the Planning Commission and also 30 days prior to this hearing. The comments received were included in your staff packet. The Middletown Master Plan. The subject properties are included in the Town Center Development Opportunity Area. The master plan identifies medium density residential is planned at the southwest corner of the Town Center as a transition use between the lower density single family to the west and more intense retail uses to the east. Review criteria for a zoning map amendment. 1, the proposed map amendment is consistent with the master plan, other adopted city plans, and the stated purposes of the Middletown Development Code. 2, the proposed amendment is necessary or desirable because of changing conditions, new planning concept, or other social or economic conditions. 3, proposed amendment will promote the public health, safety, and general welfare. 4, the proposed amendment, if amending the zoning map, is consistent with the stated purposes of the proposed zoning district. 5, the proposed amendment is not likely to result in any significant adverse impacts upon the natural environment, including air, water, noise, storm water management, wildlife, and vegetation, or such impacts will be substantially mitigated. And/or number 6, the proposed amendment is not likely to result in any significant adverse impacts on other property in the vicinity of the subject lot. Slide, please. Planning Commission approval. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the map amendment for the properties to City Council. As a part of the plan development process, if approved, the properties would be rezoned to PD Plan Development District. 2, again, acknowledge that there is a development plan associated or in process for these properties. As a part of the preliminary development plan approval, Planning Commission required the following conditions be resolved before the final development plan be submitted. Adequate buffering provided to surrounding properties. Trash dumpster is located away from property lines. Square footages are provided for the apartments. Apartments are market rate and provide the proposed rent amounts. And all engineering comments are met, and plans need to comply with the engineering manual of design, grading, stormwater, utilities, erosion control, traffic, etc. The time limit to submit the final development plan is within 1 year after the approval of the preliminary development plan. That would conclude my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I had 2 questions. I assume there's multiple exits, one onto Lefferson and one into the neighborhood, or?
One would be off of Lefferson and one would be off of Audubon.
Okay. And then this addresses rent amounts, but do we have any idea what sort of rents they're looking at?
We don't, that was one of the conditions by Planning Commission, but I'd be happy to forward that on when we receive that information.
I agree on that one for sure.
And these are, looks like they're interior access, not an exterior.
That's right.
And this developer previously developed the apartments that are.
Nicholas Place?
The Nicholas Place.
Yes.
Okay.
Just so I understand, because Robin Springs was before my time, but I know I've heard people make comments about how it was originally market rate and then it became some form of, I don't know if it's Section 8 or subsidies or what it is. So can you walk me through just how that does or does not happen?
I actually cannot, I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
Robin Springs changing to Section 8.
Okay, or I know it's got some kind of subsidy attached to it.
I could look that up and
Okay,
certainly report
and I
back.
just didn't know if there was, once you approve a development like this, is there a process where it can change, I guess is the ultimate question.
And I'll definitely look into that.
Okay.
and report back if that's-
Thank you.
I looked into the website for Nicholas Place just to look at that development and see how it has progressed since it was built. And there is a clear notice on the front page of their website that says that they do not
Right.
accept Section 8. And it's
nice.
a
Oh, for sure. And I'm sure this will be, I think, I've just had a couple people reach out to me specifically because maybe the proximity to Robin Springs and say, how do we know that won't happen? And I don't know at all, so that's why I wanted to ask the question.
And I can certainly report back before you have your second.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and to that point, Mrs. Vittoria does make a good point about there's certain things we can control, certain things we can't in the future, but I raised this point at Planning Commission when this was brought before Planning Commission, I think last week, and also with other council members, but this provides 200-some apartments, and then, I'm sorry, this was presented last month to Planning Commission. So this is over 200 units. And then last week at Planning Commission, there was a potential multifamily rental development that would be 300-plus units located north of Atrium. So as a council, as a planning staff, as administration, Planning Commission, we all need to get on the same page of, can the city absorb hundreds and hundreds of multifamily rental units, all planned for maybe the next 24 months. And what does the Danter housing study say about that? And it's pretty clear that the Danter study said you could probably do about 700, but that included senior, that included downtown, that included more suburban type things like this. So maybe it would be helpful to inform the public, inform council on just where we are headed and how does all this fit in, because if we're operating in silos and Planning Commission approves this, staff recommends all these discrete individual projects, and then all of a sudden, we've got multifamily in abundance, but we're lacking in single-family residential. So that's my concern. I've expressed it now a couple times, so I don't know if there's a response to that, other than I hope that we can look at this comprehensively and make sure that we're filling the need for residents that want to buy here, want to live here for the long term, not necessarily the multifamily rental, excuse me.
And as you note, our master plan is from 2005, and we are addressing those concerns in our 2021 update.
My other question is, how many more one-bedroom units does the city believe we need? There's obviously a very, very high percentage of one-bedroom units, and I keep hearing that our housing stock is already, houses are too small, everything's too small. Are one-bedroom units really what the city believes is needed for the housing stock? I'm sure the developer has done their research and they believe that that's what's going to sell for them, but is that something that, I don't know where we stand on one-bedroom, two-bedroom, three-bedroom when it comes to the master plan, or?
That's probably an internal discussion we need to have and then report back.
Okay, because I don't feel comfortable voting on this until like all these kinds of questions are answered. So I know this is a first reading tonight, obviously, after the public hearing, but that would be coming to us in 2 weeks. So I just want to make sure we kind of have that discussion before we're asked to vote on it.
To play devil's advocate on that a little bit, I looked into a lot of the reviews on the other apartment complex that they built, and a lot of them stated that their desire to live in that complex was because they were looking for something that was, for their lifestyle, which was maybe working in Cincinnati and Dayton, and we do have that appeal as a central location to the highway and to job opportunities north and south of us. So just to play devil's advocate a little bit on that.
Actually, I'm not arguing that we don't need the one bedroom. I'm asking the city what they believe we think we need.
Potentially, maybe more the concern down the road is, these look very nice, and not all condo or apartment units are created the same. So what do we do with the ones that are now maybe reaching the end of their useful life, and how do we bring those, maybe offline to be redeveloped? And maybe we don't have the power to do that, but I think everybody's kind of saying the same thing, that somehow we have to have some control over the rental market, and not oversaturating it with the small spaces. So, thank you, Ms. Combs.
Thank you. Any other questions for me? Thank you.
Thanks.
So seeing this is a public hearing, we need to open the floor for any comments in favor of the proposed map amendment. And if you do have any comments, come on up to the dais, state your name and address for the record, and we'd love to hear from you. Okay, if anyone has any comments in opposition to the map amendment, I welcome you to come up at this time. Okay, that being said, we will close the public hearing for the proposed map amendment. And we have another public hearing, the 2022 tax budget for the city of Middletown.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, each year at approximately this time, we are asked, and it is required by state statute, to establish our property tax budget for the upcoming year. So in this case, for 2022, we are establishing our property tax budget based on the taxes generated in '21. It has to be adopted ultimately by July 15th under state statute. What we have included in your packet is essentially status quo, 6.90 mil total levy for the city. That includes the 1.0 mil senior levy. The estimate at this point, and it is a relatively conservative estimate, and we get this in early as a kind of placeholder, but ultimately we have a permanent appropriation later by resolution that will be approved, and that will be much more precise, consistent with our budget. But at this point in time, it's a relatively conservative and modest expected 1% increase over last year, so that the total produced by that 6.9 mil levy is estimated to be $4,625,218. Of that total, $2,950,230 goes to the general fund. Special revenue funds get $1,028,986. Capital projects $570,123, and agency funds $75,878. So we are also required by statute to simply hold a public hearing on this. So if you do have any questions, we would attempt to answer them.
I was curious, the general property tax, real estate went down in 2021 and 2022, but I understand the assessments for most people's properties went up, and I guess I don't understand the trend and why it went down.
When you say it went down, why do you say it went
Let me look on page 29 of the workbook. So, it says revenues, local taxes, general property tax, real estate, and the actual for 2020 was 200,348, and the current year estimated for 2021 was 186,465, which is also estimated for 2022.
Help me, what page was that again?
I'm on the workbook, so,
Page 7 of the actual budget.
Okay,
We
page,
have slightly different numbers. in the
yeah, I figured you
That's
probably did,
why
that's
I'm
why.
It's page 7, I
confused.
think you're looking at. It's Exhibit 2 at the upper right-hand corner.
Exhibit 2,
I'm
yes.
looking at page 8, numbered on that, for page 20.
Yes, it does say page 8 at the bottom.
Does it say
of
page 8?
that
Okay, then
portion,
maybe I was
yeah.
looking at the wrong one.
okay, if you'll indulge me for a second, I want to get to the
Yeah, no
right
problem.
page, and I'll be able to respond. Okay. Page 8, okay. Now, the question was,
Yeah, the general property tax, real estate, it looks like it's gone down 2021, which we've just duplicated to 2022 estimated. I felt like people's assessments on their properties went up, and I didn't quite understand how the trend went down for 2021 when it comes to the taxes.
the estimate is relatively inaccurate, I will tell you that, obviously. It should be higher. I think what happened probably in the absence of a finance director, we probably took numbers from last year because they didn't get good quality direction. This is an estimate, in effect, a conservative estimate. So you're absolutely correct. The trend is up. It is moving upward. It will be a higher number.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely. But yes, last year was a reassessment year, so we saw that average, I think they said something on the order of 24% in the city of Middletown, because the last time they had done it, that actually had gone down significantly because of the recession, then it took a long time coming back, so that when the final reevaluation came, of course, it was making up for a lot of those years. But in the process, there was a significant increase on average. So you're absolutely correct, those numbers would obviously translate to higher numbers,
Okay.
so.
Butler County does not send out the revised estimates until late August, September. So probably they used last year's numbers.
And that's one of the things, that's why this tends to be an estimate. We just have to get it done and have it in place. And then we do the permanent appropriation resolution that will actually match our budget later. And that one will be precise.
And can you remind me when the senior levy, I thought it ended at the end of this year, is that?
It does, but we're collecting taxes in '21 for the '22 budget. So
Got
this
it,
is the
okay.
last time. So this
Where are the
'21
numbers in 22?
taxes are
Okay.
in fact the last time it's being imposed.
Any other questions from council before we open the public hearing portion up?
I look forward to seeing how those general tax numbers change when we get more accurate numbers.
And you will see a fairly significant increase, although because property taxes make up a much less significant portion of our revenues in the general fund, it doesn't amount to huge amounts of dollars, but as a percentage, it will be reflective of what you saw.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing for the 2022 tax budget for the city of Middletown. If I have any comments, is there some? Good.
They're just having trouble hearing.
I'd like to open the public, is that better? Oh, yeah. I'd like to open the public hearing for the 2022 tax budget for the city of Middletown. If we have anyone in favor of, and wants to speak in favor of, please come up to the dais at this time.
You're sitting sideways.
I'm right in between. Should we sit a little closer?
Okay, with no comments in favor of, I would like to open the floor for any comments in opposition. Okay, we'll close the public hearing for the 2022 tax budget for the city of Middletown, and we will open a third public hearing for the 2022 tax budget for the Midpoint Library.
Good
Good evening. I'm Deborah Slater, the Midpoint Library Systems Fiscal Officer, and I'm joined by Travis Bouts. He's our director. And like you all, we are here to discuss the 2022 budget. But before I do, we have had a tumultuous year, and Travis wanted just to highlight a few things. That's what's going on at the library since we were last here. So, Travis?
Hi, everybody. I'm Travis Bouts, director of the Midpoint Library. And like everybody else, it was all COVID all the time, last year. But I'm particularly proud that our staff was very committed to safety. And I want to compliment Jackie Phillips, the health director for the city. She was always patient, always helpful. And no matter how busy she was, she always helped us get to the safest solution possible, which helped us to be, what we really wanted was aggressive in reopening and restoring our services. So we did so in May of 2020 and have been increasing in our particular services ever since. Looking forward, we are hiring. We're looking to expand fully back to all of our services and events and programs that we had before all of the things closed down. So if you know anyone, happy to hear from them. So let everybody know, please. Thank you.
And then, again, just on behalf of our board, we'd like to thank you for all the support that you've given us over the years. Turning to our 2022 budget, you have in your packet all the paperwork which outlines not only our revenues but also our expenditures. And again, by way of review, the City of Middletown is our taxing authority, and I'm bringing forth the budget for review. After it comes here, then it will go to the Budget Commission, like yours will, for Butler County, for approval, and then we will get our certificate of estimated resources. Run through the same process that you do. This is estimated items and kind of like our but then come November, then we really get down to the nitty-gritty of what's really going to happen next year. The revenues that you have in front of you for our general fund will total $9,036,500. Expenditures are projected to be $8,983,991. Part of these expenditures are for the additional programming ramp up, expanding connectivity to more students in the Middletown school system. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Had a couple questions, but first some praise because you guys have done a great job this year. I got two of the brackets sitting at home that my kids are filling out, and just great job during very difficult circumstances. So
It's a team effort, and we appreciate that.
kudos to you all. A couple questions here just on the revenue and disbursement page, and you had mentioned you're going to be hiring. I do see significant increases in salaries and purchase contractual services. Is that mainly due to the hiring you were talking about, or other additional enhancements we should expect?
We did cut staff in 2020. Obviously, it wasn't easy, but we had to balance the books and make sure we had the right staff for the amount of work we had available.
Mm-hmm.
So, you talk about people that did story times or activities for all ages. We couldn't do that. So this is sort of the pendulum swinging back to try and get those positions restored so we can offer those programs and services again.
The other items in that category that you're talking about include everything from all of anything that we would procure or purchase, or including all the software. We are ramping up in a huge way connectivity to all the students in the city of Middletown, and even expanding further out into our district. So there's going to be a lot of technology bought, and that's a main account that we would be purchasing that out of.
Are you looking at wireless coming from the building?
Mm-hmm. Hotspots, tablets, laptops, just making sure that we're getting connectivity in the hands of all the students.
There are a lot of
that really need it.
associations doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Butler Tech's looking at that. The school is at SWOCA.
Mhm.
We're in talks with them too to see how we can all collaborate together to push out the network signals to those in need.
A lot of those trends that came from 2020, that the connectivity that was required is showing people that there's a lot of opportunity there to continue that connectivity and reach people where they are.
There really is, and we expanded our Wi-Fi reach further out into our parking lot, but then we see the need that, students need hotspots. If they don't have it at home, they need to be able to get one at the library if their school doesn't have it, to take it home so that they can be connected to further their education. Because as you know, with COVID, it also taught us that, 100% of the learning sometimes is all online. And if you're not able to be connected, there goes your learning.
Will there be a charge like there is with the one, I think it's with SWOCA, that they're running off of, that the schools are running, or how would you guys be doing your?
You wouldn't charge.
We wouldn't charge it. We would be absorbing the cost, which is why some of the costs are in here, and then circulating it just like we would a book or a magazine or something like that.
Thankfully, there's federal dollars
Yeah.
now that can help with that.
And do you have to go through SWOCA, or can you also work with private providers like Spectrum or Cincinnati Bell?
We work with both.
Okay.
We're have tentacles in all areas to make sure we're getting the best pricing. Because so we service half of Butler County. So what is working in Middletown may not be working at a branch in Westchester or in Trenton or something. So it just depends on the area actually, because Spectrum or Sprint or whatever is not being able to service our whole district. So we have to pick and choose depending on the area of our service area.
Because we have that free Wi-Fi for Cincinnati Bell for downtown that ends pretty much right next to where probably the library begins. So I just wondered if there'd been any conversation with Cincinnati Bell, because that would feel like an easy way to potentially continue over with the free Wi-Fi and maybe into the more
The
deep.
state pays for our internet connection at our buildings, and we just push that out, so.
Okay.
It's free. It's paid for, I think, by those charges you get on your.
Gotcha.
those miscellaneous charges on your telecom bill. But yeah, it is free for us. But other places, we do have, our Liberty Center branch in particular, it has exclusivity because of the property with Cincinnati Bell. So we have to be flexible and go with whatever option is best.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any other
One
questions or comments?
historical budget question before
Yes.
my time, that it's in 2019, I just saw, like, there's a $3 million transfer, and there's none any years after that. Are you familiar with that transfer, what it was for?
I am.
It sounds like you probably, $3 million is a lot, you must know that.
Yeah, I've been here 15 years. It's not my first rodeo. So what we did then is we transferred $3 million to our capital improvement fund, because we have half of the county. So we are continually improving buildings, buying buildings, and fixing them up, renovating them. And so that was a transfer to the capital improvement fund for those kinds of items. We also have a long-term maintenance plan that we have done. And so sometimes, depending on the year, because that fluctuates, sometimes depending on our maintenance plan, we may be due to replace the whole HVAC system. So that would be like a $1.2 million item. So we would transfer money from the general fund to the capital improvement fund for that. Because as you know, or maybe you don't know, the capital improvement fund can only get revenue from the general fund. It can't collect revenue from taxes or anything like that. So it would always be a transfer.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, with that, we will be opening the public hearing. If anyone has any comments in favor of the 2022 tax budget for the Midpoint Library, please come to the dais and speak. Okay, with no comments in favor, are there any comments in opposition? All right, fairly seamless public hearings. We'll close the 2022 public hearing for the tax budget for the Midpoint Library. And next we have a presentation from Mary Huntlinger from the Middletown Visitors Bureau with an update for us.
I did. Okay. Thank you. They're picking up your slides.
Some familiar faces. Do you want me to just say next?
Yeah, go for it. I got it.
So Mayor Condrey and members of City Council, Mr. Palahniuk and Mrs. Cohen, thank you for allowing me time today to provide a brief progress report on the Middletown Visitors Bureau thus far this year. Despite this being COVID or coming out of COVID, we have positioned our communications about Middletown's assets in a way that we are seeing increased engagement with our many marketing campaigns. This engagement is very exciting for us because it's part of 3 programs that we actually launched during COVID. So we're excited to see what actually happens as things begin to open back up more freely and people begin to move about and travel. First, I'd like to congratulate Mika Glacier-Jones for her recent appointment to the MVB board as president. We're excited. She has served for 4 years during the transition and into the new Visitors Bureau, so we're excited to have her on board as president. What I'd like to speak to you today about is a couple of things. What we're seeing in the tourism industry, not only across the country, but in Ohio and more centric with regards to Southern Ohio. I'd like to give an update on Portopia, geocaching, an update on the Adventures Through Art Mural Tour, and I'd also like to talk a little bit more about the importance of pickleball and our opportunity that it presents to our community. And lastly, I'd like to provide an overview of the positive messaging campaign that we've relaunched to help counter some of the less than positive trending stories in the media. Next slide, please. So what we're seeing this year, thus far in the first part of 2021, surprisingly, our hotel stays and airport travel is getting close to pre-COVID, and in some cases, exceeding pre-COVID numbers. It's clear that people, for the most part, are comfortable and eager to travel. It's just a matter of, are they doing it with COVID safety precautions or doing it freely? What we've heard also is there are a lot of pent-up demand in ticket sales. So people are really eager to get out and start experiencing things, traveling, going to movies, shows, other tourism experiences. And we've seen this firsthand, more specifically with regards to the Adventure Through Art walking mural tour, how many downloads we've had of the map, and also the initial feedback on our Geo Tour launch event that has now morphed into a 3-day event in August, and I'll talk about that in a little more detail shortly. Among businesses in the tourism industry, staffing remains a top concern as they struggle to cover shifts for expanded hours, and we're seeing policymakers start to respond to this hurdle with new proposals to get people back to work, so incentivizing them. And we're also seeing that locally in Middletown, where a lot of our hotels are really struggling to have full staffing needs. Some of our hotels are not opening up all their room availability, surely because they do not have enough staffing to cover room turnover. One of the biggest takeaways and trends is the data point that road trips are the focal point of a large percentage of the travel now that people are out and about. For us, this means a 3 to 4 hour drive time geographically, which coincidentally is a key strategic position for the Middletown Visitors Bureau. So we're not in LA or Chicago or New York. So a lot of people consider us a weekend getaway or a day trip. And so to hear that people are really interested in focusing on shorter duration trips, closer to home, really positions Middletown in a place of opportunity. And then lastly, another trend that benefits Middletown is now that people are out and about, they are doing so with family and friends. Large groups numbering anywhere from 8 to 10 are traveling together to these experiences and attractions. Again, I think Middletown really can benefit from this. A lot of the outdoor activities and experiences and events that we have fits nicely with what these larger groups are looking for. So I think there's blue skies ahead of us, to cue one of your sayings, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for us with regards to the 3 projects that we're launching this year. So let's dive right into those. So for the past 2 years, many of you have probably heard mention or discussion about Portopia. Last month, we made the formal decision to declare the Portopia project a go. We're close enough to our fundraising goals that we feel confident that we can cross the finish line and pursue this project with a launch date in September. This week we start the marketing campaign, and I'll email you a copy of the hype video that we're pushing out, and then we'll keep you guys included also on the weekly marketing shifts. It's kind of a teaser reel over the summer, pre-launch. We've contracted with 10 artists for the project, 2 of them Middletonians. The rest of them are Southwest regionally focused. And the design concepts that they've submitted, quite honestly, are phenomenal. They've really gone above and beyond, and I think the experience it will create cumulatively is one that will pay dividends with regards to not only ticket sales for the experience, but also word of mouth viral interest, and then thereby impacting our foot traffic in the downtown area. Installation begins at the end of July, wrapping up at the end of August. We'll welcome 15 to 20 influencers for a first look event in September. That, of course, is a strategic part of the marketing campaign, and then we'll also have a family and friends event. This sets us up for a target on-schedule launch for September 11th, which is also the weekend of the Port Middletown Art Festival. So shifting gears a little bit to geocaching, quite honestly, this program, if you could say that COVID gave gifts, this was a gift for Middletown. We launched this program on a whim just to see what would happen as a way to draw people to Middletown and provide them something to do in a safe fashion during COVID. We also really wanted to focus on something that was family friendly and budget conscious. So what we did was we launched 10 geocaches in a geo trail. And to date, not even a full year, we've had over 4,100 people in town from as far away as Canada, Colorado, Maine, and Florida to do the Geo Trail, which is quite phenomenal if you ask me. We will be retiring this trail, though, at the end of July and relaunching it as an expanded Geo Tour, so from a trail to a tour, in August, with what was originally a one-day, even a half-day event. It's morphed into a 3 full-day event, which is really exciting. With the investment of a formal partnership with the national or really international geocaching organization, this gets us national coverage for the Geo Tour and elevates our credibility as a must-see experience. I'd like to note here, geocachers plan their vacations around geocaching and geo tours. And we saw this past weekend or 2 weekends ago when we visited a geocaching event in Mount Vernon. The demographics were all the way from small children in strollers to, we talked to a couple in their mid-90s who do it as a way of staying fit. It was recommended by their doctor. So the launch weekend, August 21st, as I mentioned before, has turned into a 3-day event, and just in a week of launching the Eventbrite registrations and a minimal marketing, we have over 100 paid registrants. These are people coming to town, staying in our hotels, attending this event. So we have not put any money behind marketing for this. All we did was we posted a Facebook event and we went to this event. So the geocaching community is small, tight-knit, they talk to one another, and they travel. Sounds perfect. John with Hot Fusion is designing the collectible coins again this year, which is a major draw for geocachers. What they really love, though, is the unique artist design collectible element, which I think elevates and allows us to stand apart from any other geo tour out there. We also launched a promotional video last week that now has over 12,000 views. And the cool thing about this video is the majority of viewers watch at a minimum of 50 seconds of the 60-second ad. So this video is blowing all our benchmarks out of the water. Just to give you a baseline, the average video length, depending on the industry, is anywhere from 4 seconds to 9 seconds. So they're really tuning in for that. And finally, the Ohio Geocaching Group have approached us about hosting a statewide event in 2023 that has on average between 400 and 500 people attend, so of course we said yes. Transitioning over to another COVID program is the Adventures Through Art self-guided walking mural tour. For this program, we simply took an existing Middletown asset, packaged it, and promoted it. To refresh your memory, the Adventures Through Art self-guided walking mural tour consists of 16 murals that guests can follow along on a custom map, Google map, so it's free, with history, artist information, background on the inspiration of the art, and multiple photos, sometimes even including images from the installation all the way up to the completion. We launched a video to promote this art trail, and over a 3-month period, well, not over more than, it was a finite 90-day campaign. It cost us about $300. We had over 56,000 unique viewers. Again, these numbers for analytical ROI blew all of our existing baselines out of the water. We've even heard from several downtown business owners that they've had people pop in who are in town specifically for the mural tour, and we've had guests from Chillicothe, Detroit, and Akron who say that they've seen the video and they specifically came to Middletown to see the mural tour. We do have plans to create additional loops of the tour that highlight other pieces of outdoor art and existing creative placemaking. And to share with you an additional exciting development, a regional geocaching influencer has created a learning lab on the mural trail, which bridges two of our demographics groups together, artists and geocachers. So we see the melding of two groups that we're currently promoting too. So shifting to pickleball, it goes without saying that pickleball is an untapped asset. Is an untapped asset to the Middletown tourism economy. People, and I want to be clear on this because I don't know, I didn't realize this, so the interest does not lie solely around the two tournaments that occur every year. It is around the people from Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis that drive to Middletown every week to play league play. So these are round trip drives that the players and members of the Middletown Pickleball Club make because they love the community that this club has built around that location. The Middletown Pickleball Club has created something that's not found in other pickleball communities. So that really is our secret sauce. Just to recap a little bit, I'm sure you've also heard me speak about how pickleball is the fastest growing sport across all age groups. So it's not just a retiree sport anymore. In fact, at the tournament, the majority of individuals, I would say, were in their 50s and 30s. So for me, it was even eye-opening to see just how many people were participating in the sport. These two tournaments that we currently have bring in over 2,000 people over a 3 to 4 day period, and these are people that, again, are staying in our hotels. Other communities are starting to pick up on the trends in pickleball and are building pickleball courts because of the economic impact. In fact, Cincinnati is adding courts at Sawyer Point. So how do we keep our claim as pickleball capital of Ohio? I think what we do is we continue to empower the Middletown Pickleball Club to keep doing what they're doing. They've obviously developed, again, the secret sauce that's worked for them and that has brought the club to where it is today. But I think as a community, we could partner with them and really elevate their presence to the next level. I was going to talk a little bit about the bathroom situation at Lefferson Park, but it's my understanding that city staff are already aware of this situation and are working on a couple of solutions. So it's my intention to make sure that I create a bridge between the new pickleball club leadership as well as the city and, of course, MVB to make sure that we're all aligned on how we can move forward collectively to make sure that we enable pickleball to keep its presence, but also continue to give to the economy. So moving on along, I'd like to also welcome Janine Wong. She is the new Assistant Marketing Manager for the Middletown Visitors Bureau. She is a part-time employee that I brought on to help fill the void for social media as I've been focusing a lot of my time on Portopia and geocaching. She's also restarted the weekly blog post to celebrate Middletown and counter some of the negative media stories. As many of you may recall, several years ago, we brought in a consultant, Soapbox Media, to really work with the city and some of its partners to work on communications campaigns to push back or drown out some of the negative media coverage. And so in the absence of that type of collaborative effort, I think it behooves just the community that the Visitors Bureau take on this role. So we've started focusing on that internally, and we've already started to see some positive interaction with residents in Middletown on the content that we're creating. I'd like to point out that while this is beneficial to positioning ourselves to potential guests, it's also helpful for local residents to see and celebrate all of the things that are wonderful about our community. This particular move that we made isn't only helpful to the Visitors Bureau or Butler County CVB, but it also is helpful to economic development and city communicators as we collectively work to push the needle on positive messaging surrounding Middletown. In fact, we worked really closely with the staff at Economic Development to make sure that what we're pushing out and communicating about helps to either support or marry what they're communicating about with their initiatives. So with that, I hope this update has given you some insight as to what we've been hard at work on for the first part of the year. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to make a specific request, like everybody else who's come before you, I'm sure, over the past couple of weeks. They wanted to talk financing. So I think it goes without saying, or at least the feedback that I've gotten, over the past years, collectively, our board, myself, and our volunteers have made a lot of strides in positioning the Middletown community and economy as a destination location for guests and visitors. Unfortunately, due to COVID, our budget for the year has taken a 44% hit. And so as we launch 2 critical programs and expand on a third, it would be wonderful if council would perhaps reconsider some type of assessment on the lodging tax allotment for tourism purposes so that we can continue to elevate our impact in the local economy. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
You guys are doing an incredible job. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that being said, I know that there have been a lot of one-time funds that have become available. I don't know if any of those are tourism related or if there are any that would specifically benefit the type of work that you guys are doing, but I would be curious to know if that was the case.
There are specifically the American Rescue Plan Act does, within the language of the legislation, specifically call out hospitality and tourism. So, for instance, we have been talking to the folks who do the Pickleball Association, and we think that the lighting, the bathrooms, the other things that will support what they're doing down there is eligible. So we're looking real seriously at ways that we can help them. There could be ways that we also can help the Visitors Bureau if there are specific projects that, they're looking for funding for. So, yeah, we would entertain that. I think that's possible underneath some of those funds. So, yeah, we could do that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to point out that we have open dialogue with the city manager and the Department of Economic Development about what we're doing and what we're working on. They're well aware and conscious of what our needs are, and they've been very good about troubleshooting and being open to ideas and suggestions with regards to financing. I just thought it would be a great opportunity midpoint of the year to touch base with all of you to keep you updated on what we're doing.
Thank you. Great work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next we have citizen comments. We have one citizen comment this evening from Kyle McGlove. Okay, sorry, I realized I couldn't read your name there. If you can come up to the dais and state your name and address for the record for us.
It's all right, my handwriting is chicken scratch.
It's actually very good. The pen ran into it.
Hello, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Kyle McGlone. I'm a resident at 2625 Fleming Road. I come before you today as a concerned citizen, former Planning Commission member and current Board of Director member at Mid-USA Credit Union. 6 months ago, new neighbors moved in at 2700 Fleming Road. Since then, there have been thefts, arrests, ODs, arguing, multiple unknown people coming and going at all hours of the night. Prime time for the house is between 2 and 5 a.m. when everyone else is trying to sleep. Noise nuisance from the generator that runs at night because Duke has turned the electric off due to the residents tampering with the electrical panel or non-payment or both. Why am I really here? I'm asking your help for our neighborhood, better communication from the city, especially the code enforcement department. Our neighborhood has a mix of mid-40s to a 97-year-old grandfather, some of who suffer from health issues, including my wife, who's with me today. She has FND, functional neurological disorder, and PNES, psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. The grandfather, the 97-year-old grandfather, suffers from CHF. There are 5 children under the age of 10, one neighbor who has 8 to 10 grandchildren that has admitted that she is now scared to walk to the park and enjoy the improvements at Sunset Park. My wife and I have called code enforcement at least 5 times without a callback. Neighbors have also called as well without callbacks. For the piles of trash, the workout equipment on the sidewalks, the partially naked landscaping in the front yard, the list continues. I will say that I love Middletown Police and the fire department, both who have been there every time that we have called either the dispatcher or 911. I know and assume that there are probably internal investigations going on with what happens in the house. What is unacceptable, in our opinion, happened a couple weeks ago when our neighbors on Milton Avenue, or Milton Road, caught the residents at 2700 stealing electric via power cords. It was stated by the resident at Milton, who is now moving due to the residents at 2700, that a police officer came to her house, and Sarah stated that the officer said, "Why does it matter if they're stealing your electric? You're moving." To us, this is an unacceptable response. We feel as a neighborhood that we deserve better communication from the city, and especially when we call a department in the city, and we ask for your assistance in this matter before it gets too far out of hand. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And I happen to be able to speak with you before the meeting a little, and you clarified when you say you contacted the city, because I'm sure the city staff wants to improve, obviously, the response. So I understand you contacted the main city number.
I called the main city number and hit option 5 each time.
Okay.
And again,
That helps being able to fix
left
that.
messages with no response. So thank you for your attention to the matter.
Thank you very much.
Sir? Can I give you this, and I will check into it tomorrow, and I'll give you a call, but feel free to reach back with me.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
And we're certainly sorry that you're experiencing that in your neighborhood, and I'm sure we'll be able to do something as a city about that. It has to be something we can do.
I will follow up with him.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next we have council comments. We'll start with Ms. Vittori.
Thank you. I guess just in light of that citizen comment, I would be curious on how we are handling some of the code enforcement logging. I'm sure it's a lot, and I know we're trying to get through it. I know we're understaffed, but I guess from my perspective, because I've heard other people complain as well, and I always say the same thing, like, call the city, email the city. And, you know, if that is creating some kind of a bottleneck, I guess I would be curious as to what our process is and where we could improve it. And I know we're working on potentially a 311, but today, if someone has a problem, you know, does someone write down all these messages? Like, maybe just helping us understand the workflow a little bit so that we can better respond to citizens, because I don't want to give them a solution that isn't maybe a solution right now, or at least give them more information on how the solutions are happening while we work on an alternative process. So I don't need an answer now, but maybe if you could just send us as council members, like, hey, this is what we're doing right now, and if citizens are reaching out to you because they do, this is what you can tell them, so that we can kind of try to triage the situation while we're working on, I know, a bigger solution down the road. I don't even know if I had any other comments. I guess that would be it. Thank you.
Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just add, I know that Chief Burke was working on a mailer, I believe, that would go out to residents, maybe in a water bill, that would provide a list of emails or telephone numbers to call with code enforcement. But I've had success emailing Mandy Hunt in the code enforcement. So next, just hats off to staff for last week's Oakland neighborhood meeting. I appreciate the work that went into that and bringing the stakeholders together. It's always great to hear firsthand from the residents who have concerns, and it helps guide us as we try to transform that neighborhood. It's not a foregone conclusion. There's a lot of work to do. We can make a difference. I think we have some financial resources to do it. I know that we've got the skill set on our staff and the outside investors, but I think that really was a productive session to help guide us on what we should and should not be doing in Oakland, and we look forward to better days for that neighborhood. And lastly, on a personal note, I'm happy to share that I'm a candidate for reelection to City Council. It's been a great honor to represent the citizens of Middletown, and I'm eager for the opportunity to continue to lead Middletown's comeback. It's vital that we elect council members that understand the importance of delivering a government that's efficient, effective, and accountable for results. I'll continue to prioritize public safety, infrastructure, economic development, and healthy neighborhoods. Consistent leadership with sound policies will help Middletown retain residents and businesses while attracting new businesses and new employers. We've attracted over $1 billion of new commercial investment in the past decade. This spring, the city kicks off $51 million in road repaving, which represents 200 lane miles and covers 1/3 of the city's streets. We've increased staffing levels for firefighters to the highest level since 2012. Additional police officers are on the streets providing community-oriented policing. Ambitious plans are in place to revitalize neighborhoods with infill housing, rehabilitation, and enhanced park amenities. We confronted the difficult issue of subsidized housing, and we've reduced that number dramatically. I will stay on that issue. I'll address that issue in the future so that our city maintains a balance for stable and healthy neighborhoods. We need for all areas of the city to be part of Middletown's comeback. We recently announced plans for reinvigorating Town Mall with redevelopment that includes ice hockey, hotel, new retail, and residential components. We're working with our partners in Butler and Warren County governments to join with us in transformational projects that will benefit residents for years to come. I'll continue to serve as one who knows the importance of listening and working with others on council, on staff, our stakeholders, and in the community to make positive progress. My home is here, my business is here, my family has been here for 5 generations, so I want the best for our city both now and in the long run. I'm happy to serve in this role, and I look forward to the chance to serve 4 more years and to continue to lead Middletown's comeback. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moon.
Thank you. No comments this evening.
Ms. Nenny.
Speaking to the speakers here. Joe, thank you for your service to Middletown, and I appreciate your continued efforts to push Middletown in the right direction. And I've enjoyed serving with you and wish you the best of luck. To our citizen comments about the reporting process, I recently, my fiance reached out to me and said, hey, I want to report this or that. What number do I? And I actually struggled to find the right phone number, and I looked online and all of that. So I appreciate the struggle with the process, but I think if we can put out some good communication about where exactly to reach out, I think there are a lot of phone numbers, and so sometimes those messages might get lost in translation, and I hate for that to happen, but I hope that we can come up with some really productive solutions for your neighborhood. I was born and raised on Fleming, so so that particular road, when you said Fleming, I thought, oh man, that's my heart. So I think that we can do a little bit better, and we're going to try to do that for you. And then I just want to thank the library for all the work that they do with our youth, and to the Visitors Bureau for putting our best foot forward to everyone who comes to Middletown and wants to have a great experience here. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no council comments for this evening. Mr. Palahniuk, City Manager Report. Do you have anything for us this evening?
Oh, Mayor, City Council members, I don't really have anything specific this evening. I will note that I will be on vacation next week, so if you're looking for me, you won't find me. But the Assistant City Manager will be in charge, and I'll be back the week after. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. Ms. Gank, will you please present that for us this evening?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the City Council minutes of April the 20th, 2021, to receive and file the Board of Health minutes for May the 11th, 2021, and to confirm the personnel appointment of Trevor Fields to the position of maintenance worker in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Stormwater Maintenance Division.
I move to approve the issues and actions set forth in the consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
For the motion agenda, we have to receive, file, and adopt the 2022 tax budget for the city of Middletown.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Stanku, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Item B, to receive, file, and adopt the 2022 tax budget for the Midpoint Library.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Stanku, please call the roll.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Item C, to approve the purchase of highway rock salt from Compass Minerals America Incorporated of Overland Park, Kansas, in the amount of $64.11 per ton for the approximate usage of 4,500 tons over the 2021-2022 winter season.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Stanku, please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Item D, to enter into a contract for legal services with Bricker and Eckler for law director duties.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Stanku, please call the roll.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
No. Okay, Ms. Cohen, will you be presenting legislation for us this evening?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you very much. Prior to getting started, we do have two matters we're asking you to consider as an emergency this evening. So I'd ask if there's a motion to waive the charter requirements for 2 readings and 30 days to enactment regarding ordinance O-2021-50 and ordinance O-2021-51.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring 2 separate readings, and that ordinances number O-2021-50 and 51 be declared emergencies and read one time only.
Second?
Ms. Stanku, please call the roll.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
First matter for your consideration this evening is ordinance O-2021-49, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Electric Motor Technologies LLC for the repair of a blower motor at the water reclamation facility, here for a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Any comments or questions on this one? Okay, Ms. Stanku, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
The next matter before you is ordinance O-2021-50, an ordinance amending section 250.24 regarding entry-level positions, police and fire divisions, and section 250.241 regarding promotions in the police and fire divisions of the codified ordinances and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Mr. Palaniuk, did you want to comment on this one?
Sure. Madam Mayor, members of City Council, these code amendments really are in support of Chief Burke's desire to do some reorganization within the police department, we think in a pretty meaningful and effective way. Basically, with 72 sworn officers and 4 deputy chiefs, what he's really trying to do is get to the organization down to where there's a single deputy chief and 2 lieutenants. We don't have those positions currently of lieutenants, so this is allowing that to happen. And then the process also to add a traffic officer dedicated for that. And then doing that, have a more streamlined organization, but also save about $50,000 a year in the process. So I would certainly welcome Chief Burke to add anything further as well, because I know that he's been looking to do this for some time, and as a result of some of the retirements and other movements, it's making it a little bit easier right now to be able to move forward with it. So, Chief Burke, did you have other comments?
Yeah, just what Jim said. This is what I presented to you during the retreat, and it's just a way to bring the lieutenants back in there for the middle management, and it's career development. We're missing that right now from going from a sergeant all the way to a deputy chief. You just don't get that career development when it comes to budgeting and scheduling and watching that overtime. So I think this is a good move for the police department in the future, and it gives us room to expand if needed.
Did we have that structure in the past so that we had lieutenants?
We did. The former chief eliminated the lieutenant's position and moved them to deputy chiefs, and I feel they're just lacking that middle management, so I'm bringing them back.
Okay. I thought I remembered that we had them before and couldn't remember the history. Thank you.
Can you help just explain the nature behind the emergency piece of it?
Yes, I currently have a couple of deputy chiefs currently. I have 4 deputy chiefs, and 3 of them are in drop, and they can go anytime. I have Major Reeve leaving in September. Major Hood is on the fence on when she's actually leaving. And then I have another deputy chief up for running for a chief's position somewhere else. So I need to get the testing starting with the company, which gives the officer 45 days to study for the test. So I need to have an eligibility list in case my deputy chiefs move on to other positions or retire.
So it's more of like an unknown time frame that we need to kick the process off.
It's going to happen within next year, so I need to have that list ready to go by January for sure of 2022.
If I may also, I think this also helps to prevent there being any labor relations concerns. It sets the expectation now before there is an opening that this is how it's going to be filled, which could prevent us having some labor relation problems on the backside. So while we don't have an immediate date, by putting this in place now, we're prepared to A, keep the department fully staffed, but also prevent any of those labor relation issues that might come in if there were to be a questionable time period.
Thank you.
And Chief, can you speak to the outsourcing of the testing versus doing that in-house and the change there?
We're civil service, and which I like, and then I have a say. I get to select the testing material they get, but I always like the fact that the candidates are from outside the city of Middletown, so it's not internal reviewing different officers, because I want to see how those officers or candidates are reviewed by other chiefs and other departments, because I know the work they do, but I want to see if they're able to produce that work when somebody they don't know. So.
And is there any kind of financial impact of one versus the other, of doing it in-house versus sourcing?
No, we contract through the Ohio Police Chiefs. So I sit on boards for other departments, and they sit on here. There's a cost to the testing process itself because it's civil service, but it's no additional cost.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else?
Hank, will you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Next matter for you is ordinance O-2021-51, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with the Sutphen Corporation for the purchase of a Sutphen SPH-100 aerial platform ladder truck and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Mr. Palaniuk, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, the City of Middletown Fire Department only has a single aerial platform ladder truck. The one that we have was first purchased in 2013. It was used at the time. It's now 19 years old. It is becoming quite unreliable, and I believe at this current moment it is probably in the shop. And when you only have one of a critical piece of apparatus and it tends to become unreliable, it truly is time to replace that. And these units are very expensive. They also take a very long time once you order one to actually have it delivered. So there's about a 13 to 15 month lead time on this. We recognize the need to purchase it, and also with prices going up on things like this, we've been notified that if we don't authorize its purchase by July 1, that we would then see a 3 to 4% increase in the cost. So the reason that we're asking this an emergency is in fact to avoid that cost increase that would take effect July 1st. The cost of this unit, Sutphen, which the chief can speak to in terms of why this particular unit makes the most sense for us, is $1,287,090.05. Typically, we would buy individual pieces of rolling stock or apparatus through our equipment revolving fund, and then each individual department pays, each year an appropriate amount into depreciation so that that equipment fund covers it. Because this particular piece is so expensive, because the last time it was purchased was used, this wasn't built into our equipment fund, so we're going to wind up in effect financing this. So at the next city council meeting, we'll be bringing forward what's called a ban or a bond anticipation note that will put this truck along with some needed short-term financing for a maintenance facility at the wastewater treatment plant. But for now, the urgent issue is to authorize its purchase. We will have to pay for it, but we have more than adequate reserves, and then the short-term financing will ultimately take care of it. That short-term financing will get rolled over next year into a longer-term financing, which in fact will be more consistent with the useful life of the truck itself. But these have become very expensive pieces of apparatus. You can't really get away without having one. And in our case, unfortunately, it's ended its useful life. So I would welcome Chief Lawley to tell you a little bit more about what's happening here and why they selected Sutphen specifically.
Good evening. Unfortunately, as City Manager Palahniuk said, this piece of equipment is the most expensive piece of equipment that we use in the fire department. And one good thing about that is generally these pieces of equipment frontline will last us somewhere to 15 to 20 years. We use Sutphen Corporation because essentially they're pretty local. They are in Columbus, Ohio, is where they're manufactured. And a lot of times when they do need repairs that can't be done here in the city of Middletown, we can get them up right to Springfield, Ohio, where they have a plant, or in Columbus. As we said, it is the most expensive piece of equipment. However, for example, right now we are without a ladder truck. It's in the shop being serviced. When that happens, we have to rely on our neighbors to supply us with the ladder truck through mutual aid, like we supply them when they need help from us. And Monroe and the city of Franklin have been very generous in helping us a lot this year. As I said, it's been out of service over 50% of the year. Unfortunately, when you need a ladder truck, you need it now. And what happens with relying on mutual aid is your response time is a lot longer. And so the longer it takes for that piece of apparatus to get from neighboring cities, the more untenable the situation gets. A ladder truck not only flows high volume water on large major fires, it also serves functions to do rescue operations at high levels, especially out at AK Steel. Many times we've had situations out at AK Steel, the Cliffs now, and other industrial facilities in town where the rescue has to occur above where normal ladders can reach. So it's used very frequently during the year for a lot of operations, not only water flow, but as I said, rescue operations and forcible entry and those things of those nature. Any questions I can?
Hey, Chief, is the one that's being replaced, is it going into reserve or is it?
Yes, our plan is to put it in reserve and use it for, Captain Burden. I did it again. How many years do you think we could reserve out of it?
I think you could probably get another 5 years.
Generally, by NFPA standards, a ladder truck should be in service for 15 years. We tend to push that 20 to even a little bit more years. Second line of service, it should get another 5 to 8 years. So
Chief,
that's our plan.
this was purchased used, so
This-
how many
this
years
actually-
was
this
the
truck
previous
was purchased used. It was, it's a 2004, 2002. We bought
It's
it.
nearing 20
Yeah,
years of total.
we bought it from Green Township. We actually came across a great deal that we really couldn't refuse at the time. We were in dire need of a ladder truck. The ladder truck at that time had been in service for 20 years, and we couldn't even put it on the road anymore.
But those kind of second market deals are
Yeah,
not out there
Green
now,
Township.
or?
Yeah, Green Township had this truck, and they didn't have a building over like 50 feet. And they're like, we don't even know why we had this truck. And it was over $1 million truck that we purchased for $400 and some thousand. And it was almost a once in a lifetime deal. We've even looked in the last couple years for that type of an opportunity, and it's not.
So not a deal that can be replicated.
I wish there was, because, I mean, the truck is serviced as well, but I think we've spent almost $100,000 in repairs of this truck in the last few years.
And buying used changes the depreciation as well, right? Isn't that what we said? Or was it just a choice we made on how we replenish with or without the depreciation schedule?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. So that's another downside of buying used.
I can't speak to, when they set this up or why they didn't include this truck, but in the future, once we buy this truck, that'll get booked back into the equipment revolving, so there'll be an opportunity come 15 years down the road or whatever that is to use that fund as opposed to financing it again.
In the budget cuts of 2014, the depreciation within the Division of Fire was no longer funded. So we have not been funded since 2014 for depreciation purposes for the ladder truck.
And that's what will allow us in the future to plan ahead?
And the plan is to return to that, yes.
Now, I do want to note that Burke came up and said he's going to save us 50 grand. And you're
Is he gonna
asking
share any
for
of that with you?
1.4 million. I just thought I'd point that out.
Sharing is caring.
I can't comment.
Thank you. Obviously,
Thank
we
you.
need this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Ms. Skink, will you please call the roll for us?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
The next matter is, excuse me, ordinance number 2021-52, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract between the city and White Dog Distilling Company for the sale of city-owned property, here for a first reading.
Mr. Palanick, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, you may be familiar that the city owns a vacant lot that used to house the former Studio Theater right next to the White Dog Distilling. And really, it isn't used for much at this point in time, but the owners of White Dog, who are Mike and Debbie Dranchuk, had approached the city about acquiring that particular parcel and developing as a kind of outdoor entertainment venue where they would have seating and live music and outdoor games, at times make available potentially a spot for food trucks, and even have a small dog park, and the dog park would be available to the public. So what we're proposing in this case is the sale of the property to the owners of White Dog Distilling. The cost is incentivized because they would be, making significant improvements. So rather than doing a typical appraisal and or putting it out to bid, this is a negotiated sale at $5,000. There are terms attached to it that would include that if the owner, after acquiring it, were ever looking to sell it, that the city would have the first right of refusal to purchase it back. That the city could require it if they did not complete the plans to develop it within 3 years, if they didn't complete their purchase of their own building through land contract by the end of 2023, and that we would also require that their dog park be open to the public and that be ADA compliant. And I think Chriselle may want to add further comment to this, but I know that she had been working with the owners for quite some time, and this is something they're really excited about and wanted to see move forward. So, is Chriselle here?
Yes.
Okay, there she is.
Thankful for this opportunity to finally get to talk about this project. We've been working with the Dranchuks for over a year, but obviously through the COVID excuse, a lot of things were delayed. Is there a next slide?
I don't think they're.
There we go. These are just preliminary, I can't say the word, conceptual plans. These are kind of, I would say, draft plans, but as Mr. Plownick had mentioned, the idea is to create some outdoor entertainment space. Really what they're looking for is they want to give homage to the Studio Theater, and they want to have an amphitheater where they can have live music, potentially play some outdoor movies to get people to be outside and to enjoy that. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a proposed area for a small amphitheater. North of that is some bocce ball and pickleball. And then the dog park would run along the back side. Central Avenue, as you can see, is over here, if you're looking at it on the left-hand side. And then in the middle, some more cornhole and bocce ball, and then some outdoor seating. There's a room for one food truck, and if possible, they could always slip in a couple other food trucks. Now, their idea is not to have like 3 food trucks all the time. They just want to have, if they have like a big event, have the capacity to do that, but occasionally have at least one food truck at their space, just to kind of get that vibe. In the downtown master plan, there was hope that we would develop some sort of space for a food truck park, and so this kind of addresses that area, and they're also addressed the dog park issue. So this dog park is going to be owned by White Dog. They're going to maintain it, and it will be open to the public. So it's not going to be huge, but we did hire an architect to lay out everything, because when they first came on with all their wish lists, I was like, there's no way that's going to fit on that little lot, but it can definitely fit. So if you hit the next slide, please, it'll give you a little bit better. So this is kind of another conceptual plan. One of the things that I think that they've been great, these owners are great owners. They've listened to us, and we've had a lot of dialogue and discussion. One of the things that I was really requesting is we've got these Central Road improvements happening in the next 24 months, and I really wanted the park to complement what we're doing. So you're not going to see like a white picket fence. You're going to see a fence that complements the ornament style that's going to be developed on Central Avenue. Now, those haven't been definitely addressed yet, so those types of things are going to be moving along. The other thing is some of the lights that we have seen on Central Park or Central Avenue, they're going to bring in those lights. They estimate to spend anywhere between $200,000 to $300,000 for these improvements. So a lot of it is is obviously the amphitheater, but it's electric in the fence. The fence is very, very expensive. The other thing I want to talk about is these owners are great community partners. They're very active on DMI. They sponsor. They're on the board. They have several fundraisers throughout the year. And one thing you might not know about them is they had a virtual tip jar during COVID for Middletown bars and servers, and they gave $100 to every bartender in Middletown during that time. So they're philanthropic, and they have big hearts. And they're not Middletonians. They don't live here, but they love Middletown just as much as anyone else that would live in Middletown. So I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing some activity further down Central Avenue, and look forward to their future development. Does anyone have any?
Thank you. I think Mike and Debbie are great, and I agree with you. They've already put in so much, and this is really exciting. And I think just to put a point on it, because I know a lot of people have questions about our parks right now, and we're obviously still finishing that master plan. So this isn't part of that. This is them doing it privately, which is why we can have this discussion. Because I know there are just other people who are going to be like, what about this park? So this is a private entity who is building a park of sorts, along with other things, with their money and their space. So I just wanted to make that kind of distinction for people as we talk about parks. But I think this is terrific, and I think
the other thing too that I should mention, they had obviously as a downtown business, they wanted to pay homage also to Cara, and so they plan on naming that park and having a dedication for her as well too. So I think that's just really touching that they've done that, and they're trying to consider everything. So.
I appreciate all this work with White Dog. I think, again, to echo Amy and your sentiments, they're great community partners.
They are.
And to see this opportunity come to fruition for them is really exciting.
I mean, so they distill everything. They distill liquor, gin, tequila, and vodka. And if you've seen their bottles, everything is Middletown on it. They have beautiful bottles, and now they've recently started distilling bourbon. So they've got 5 liquors. I mean, that's just neat in and of itself.
Yeah.
So.
And I think their bourbon's going to be available in stores soon.
Yes.
So support White Dog.
Yep, absolutely.
Ms. Lyons, just one thought, maybe you've already checked into it. I'm going back maybe over 5 years here, but I believe the city designated specific spots for food trucks. One was downtown, I believe the other one was at Atrium. So we may just want to double check, if you haven't already, that they're actually in the food truck zone, and if any changes needed made to that.
I think so, because this was the food pod that the previous people were going to do, was this area.
Yeah.
We already have had some discussions.
Okay, you've looked
about
into that,
this.
okay.
Yes.
I was gonna say, we take this through our development committee, so people have reviewed it, so, but we'll definitely check again, just to make.
And they've had food truck events in this space before that have been approved through zoning.
I think as we get to a little bit more solidified plans, there may be some updates that need to happen because of the permanency of this. A lot of what we have passed, I think, is geared towards more transient behavior. So there may be a couple of updates, but I think at this stage, these are pretty preliminary plans, and we didn't want to make any changes, to bring to you any changes until we got to the point where we had a very definite idea of what was going on.
And obviously, we tell you how important site control is. So to them, site control is very important before they put additional money and investment in. They just want to make sure that they can receive this property. So that's the first thing on the list.
So with that being said, is it open to the public or only to White Dog Distillery customers?
The park? Mm-hmm. No, the dog park will be open to the public, absolutely. The interior.
The rest of it is part of their business.
It's part of their business. But it's, I mean, open. I've gone to a restaurant before and not purchased anything, so.
So I guess that brings up a question about their liquor license. So would they be seeking to expand their liquor license onto this patio? And if so, does that make it not eligible for Dora drinks for people who are coming from other places? Because that's one of the stipulations of the Dora, is if you enter another liquor establishment with a drink from a different establishment, that is not okay. So I would be curious whether or not they were looking to expand that or just take advantage of the Dora in that space.
My intention is to take advantage of the Dora. Anyone.
I think that's something I would want to make sure was clear if this was going to be a public space and a public park.
It's not a public
that
space.
they
It's
would
the
allow.
dog
Yeah.
park. I don't think that they're gonna allow liquor, probably not in the dog park. The dog park is kind of separate. You can kind of see it. It's got it'll have an entrance off of Central, but then you go into the other, and it's gonna have its own fence. So that's essentially for that. But everything else is for White Dog, but it's
Right.
definitely things that we can look into and explore.
Yeah, I just would be curious because that would make a difference for
It's
their
not a public
customers
park.
or-
It's the
Right.
dog park is gonna be open to the public. It's.
But you see how the question changes the use of that space.
I definitely would like to know whether Dora can be used in that space or not. That would be, I mean.
Because if someone wanted to walk through that space to get to the dog park with their Dora drink, you see where it muddies the waters if they expand their liquor license into that space. It's if they own it, it's their prerogative. They have the ability to do that. But I'm just curious about the intention.
I'll definitely make sure I understand what you're asking.
Yeah.
It's their space and they're gonna treat it just as any.
I can talk to you a little bit more, but just having a license in the Dora, it's some of the nuances are a little bit complicated. But, yeah.
What is the land currently zoned for?
I mean, it was commercial, so.
It would be the
Yeah.
Central Business District zoning, so
UCC.
The studio theater, closed down in
It's UCC.
88, 19.
yeah, UCC, which is central business, any and all things allowed for within the Central Business District.
And the land is developable, right? It's not like
Absolutely.
contaminated or anything like that.
The city did the demolition.
I would be curious, just, this isn't the first time a bar has come to us asking to take over additional land. I remember Fig Leaf came, I was here at some point, and we considered the land to be of economic development use. I would like to circle back on that land as well, if we see any potential use for that. I know they're still interested in that, and just seeing as we are basically giving this land up to a very similar type of a business entity, is that something that's revisitable? I don't know where we are economic development-wise on that land, but it's tough. I know they're two separate areas of our city.
The zoning was
understand
different.
that.
The zoning was a different issue on that, so it's a little bit different.
And that project is, that project is a potential commercial industrial project, that land. So,
I think there is a fundamental difference here too. I think when we look at how we're going to utilize these lands, the use is always to look at what's the highest and best use that we can have available. And I think the issue behind that you were referring to about the baseball fields and things, there was a concern about whether that was the highest and best use or whether there was an economic concern. I think the difference with this particular unit is that this is going to be harder to get to a higher economic use, and this pulls a lot of the development down that direction, and you get to the point where maybe this is the highest and best use, but that's a decision council's going to have to make. There is a differentiation in what we were considering before.
Have we had any
I don't believe
interest?
we own that property either,
Right.
the other property, that's the main.
Okay, I didn't actually realize that.
And have we had any commercial interest in this property since we took it down? Okay. No one's inquired
Should
about.
say that the new owner of the building that's right next door to this lot was interested, but we've already been talking with them in negotiations, but that's the only one that I've received.
For a similar type use, or they wanted it for a similar type use?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think when we took the studio down, we talked about this being a pocket park. That was one of the things that we talked about as part of our justification for taking down the studio. So this really does, and again, not on our dime, on, you know, this private entity's dime, create a beautiful park, so.
Although it is private, right?
Yeah, it just feels like similar to like 50 West to me. Like, again, with you go down there, your kids are playing, maybe you buy a beer, maybe you don't, maybe, you know, like, I think it still gives a great atmosphere, and if you end up buying something, you do or not, I don't think it doesn't feel hard.
Yeah, it would be good to know the intention of the owner.
Has the capacity to put in new parks. You know, we're trying to maintain the parks that we already have, and you're going to the Spark Master Plan, so I think right now, this land is not, I would think we wouldn't want to create a new park on a commercial area.
With city funds.
With city funds.
Right. I think it does agree with the downtown master plan, because the residential would be on Manchester Road is what, you know, one of the original designs in the master plan was downtown master plan is to have residential behind this. So this would complement it. And then if the owner decided not to use it as a private park, then we have the first right of refusal to repurchase it and do something else.
Anyone else?
Thank you so much.
Last matter for your consideration is ordinance O 2021-53, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for 3 parcels located along the south side of Lefferson Road and Audubon Drive from R4 Attached Residential District to PD Planned Development District. Here for a first reading.
Mr. Pelenick, would you like to?
This is really in support of all the information that you received earlier this evening in the public hearing. So this is the companion piece that would actually do the zoning change, and it, as indicated, is the first reading.
Figured you didn't have too much to add to that one already. Great, that's the end of our legislation. Do we have any new business items that anyone wants to raise tonight?
Just one, Your Honor. I know Ms. Vittori brought up last time a new business, the transportation study or traffic study, or whatever we're calling it. I know it's kind of a moving target, but what would be the final, what would be the end date for that? I mean, when will we have some kind of draft or recommendations? Do you have any?
I'm going to ask Scott to probably give us a little bit more clarification on that.
So we first started that in, I think, mid-2019. I'll say we got about 40% of the way through the management changes, then COVID, and then was focused on other projects, specific the paving levy. So what we're doing, we're gonna take a step back and talk about where we're at now with staff. We have some draft recommendations. We want to make sure that is consistent with the number of the large development projects we're going on that weren't there when we started this process. So I would expect we get back into that here in the next month or so, and then look to finalize that over the next, through the rest of the year, and I'd say have that complete at the beginning of 2022. So.
Okay.
Did that, to Mr. Mulligan's point originally, because we had talked about a road diet, so will that fold in well with some of the proposed pavement in the years out, if you feel like there are places that are gonna do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be more focused on the larger opportunities for that on boulevard systems, like a Grand Grand Avenue or North University or Rural Boulevard. So those opportunities definitely will be looked at.
Yeah, because, I mean, that would help a variety of things with traffic calming, and then if we're converting any one-way streets to two-way, just
And that was all
trying to be
part of the
business friendly.
discussion at the time, but obviously with the major downtown development now, we need to probably take a closer look at that to make sure that's what is right for that.
And we've talked about, I know I've harped on this one before, sorry, but making a definitive path from the interstate to downtown.
Right.
Because of ODOT with the signage and the 5 miles and what can we put, and now we've been going in that wrangle for like 3 years. But I think especially as we're looking for future downtown development, but even some of the businesses there, because they can only be on those signs if it's 5 miles, but we would have to go from Roosevelt to either Grand or Central, which we've talked about because they're better routes. And we've never picked Grand or Central because we were waiting. Is that still part of this discussion? Okay.
I think that sort of speaks to the ability to develop those gateways too, right? Once we define what that path is, then every location from here to here is part of that gateway. And we would want to look to that to improve those spaces as well. So I think that just speaks to that same point.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Do we have a timing for the master plan rollout? I know you mentioned it at some point in the past.
Is Ashley still with us?
I think she stepped out.
Okay. I would hesitate to give that answer because I know Ashley knows it real well, and I don't recall, but I know that it was moving along reasonably well, and I know that they're getting to some of the final issues, so you'll probably be seeing some of those things come forward again for some of your final input, I would think in the course of the next month or so.
Okay, I know we talked about having citizen inputs on the master plan and more sessions of some sort. I think that was at the strategic planning session.
It might be best if we have
Yeah.
Ms. Combs send it.
And that may be,
If she's
you
had that
know,
planned.
that also is coming forward in the very near future, so.
And will housing, as we've brought up a few times now, an overall housing look at things from a bigger picture perspective be included in that as well, I assume?
Mm-hmm. And that's why we want to come back to you all for some of that, input to make sure that at least the draft that looks to be, sort of a proposal is consistent with what you want to see. Because obviously this is the blueprint for the community going forward for the next number of years. So it becomes critical that it reflects the thinking of the leadership at the time. So that's why, the next important thing will be sort of to do that test against what you're really looking for by bringing it back to you to say, hey, where are we missing some things? What are the issues that maybe aren't here or that need to change?
And will that include a CIP? Because I know that was a good point that you had made, that we really didn't have a CIP that we were working on.
That's sort of another issue that we have to be developing, and we are. And of course, what has hurt us there a little bit is the absence of a finance director. So between Scott and a finance director, we are definitely doing that, and we'll keep doing that and have that available hopefully for this next budget year. But we are being set back a little bit by that.
And is that a 10-year CIP? Is that what we're
The
looking?
goal would be to have a 10-year CIP. That would be my hope, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, with that, we will adjourn until, I think the 6th of July.
So that's after our 4th of July celebration.
It is,
Which is on the 3rd of July, which we invite everyone to participate.
And the
Our
back.
Independence Day
Our
celebration.
Independence Day celebration is on the 3rd of July.
Parade, the bash, the whole
The
nine.
parade, the bash, all of it.
Well, we will then see you all on July 6th here in council chambers again. Until then, blue skies over Middletown.